Chapter 10. I don't want to. With caution, Dylan rose and took a step. He looked back at Sky and indicated she should place her foot exactly where he did and keep herself low to the ground. Dylan noticed Sky's lack of weaponry and scolded himself for not giving her at least a knife. It hadn't occurred to him she would need one. Though he'd ran into a lone sick person occasionally, he had never come up on them in packs. Dylan glanced back at Sky, making sure she was keeping up. Her face was so pale. If she passed out, he wasn't certain how he would get them out of this. Hopefully, these were all sick ones, not infected. It would be easier to escape the sick. Their stiff limbs left them with an awkward gait. But the infected would able to outrun Dylan if he needed to carry Sky. Sky was careful, painstakingly so. She imitated Dylan's every move to the smallest detail. As the infected came closer, Sky caught what Dylan had already heard. A snap of a twig here, a stir of a tree branch there. It spurred her on. She wanted out of here, safe in the truck, and headed to the cabin. She flinched at their slight noises, and tried to control her breathing, but her gasps wouldn't be controlled. Air struggled to burst out of her lungs. Instead of sustaining Sky, it seemed to suffocate her. Other than the noise of the sick, the woods were quiet now. Even though the small creatures were not in any danger from the infected, it was as if they were aware something deadly walked among them. They huddled, silent. Sky's desire to flee combined with her dread and lack of air caused her feet to tangle. She stumbled. Once, then twice, falling against Dylan. He looked back and saw the naked fear in her wide-eyed gaze. Taking her hand, he brought it to his waist and curled her fingers in the soft cotton of his shirt to help steady her. He tapped her hand a couple times with his fingers, telling her to keep it there. She nodded. Sky's fist lay against Dylan's side. His ragged breaths raised and lowered his stomach, straining his tight muscles as the tension flowed through his body. Another snap grabbed their attention. A shuffling sound. The sick were being less quiet now, becoming confident. Dylan stilled and listened for a moment. One hand rested on his knife, and the other held his crossbow. Dylan started their careful trek again, picking up their pace. Sky wasn't sure if the sick knew they were here or not, but it seemed Dylan thought they did. A few more quiet steps, then more stirring from the sick again. Sky swung her head to a rustling of branches to her left. Are they searching for us? The sick wouldn't do that. They'd attack us if they ran into us, but actively hunt us, no. She shuddered. These ones are aware. Sweat trickled down Sky's body. Her trembling hands clutched Dylan's shirt harder as if it would be the source of her salvation. Dylan gave his head a little shake as if refusing to acknowledge this was happening. Scowling, he turned back to Sky. His palm laid against the side of her face and neck as he pulled her ear to his mouth so he could whisper as quietly as possible. Be ready. I think they are coming for us. It was Sky's turn to deny the situation. She groaned and shook her head as well as she could between Dylan's head and the hand he had firmly planted on her cheek. He said, when I say run, you run for the truck like hellfire and brimstone is chasing ya. If anyone comes after you, go to the paved road. If I'm not there in 5 minutes, drive for the cabin. He pulled back and stared at her. Sky scowled and mouthed, no, no, no. Is he crazy? I'm not just leaving him here. He stopped her midway through the third no by tightening his grip and bringing her ear close to his lips again. Sky's fear made her senses more acute. She felt the outline of his every finger against her cheek and jaw, his other hand gripped her arm, her hair stirred from his breath as he spoke. Yes. You listen, you hear? If you have to go, I'll make my way back to the cabin. We're not that far away. He drew back again and stared into her eyes. You go. Sadness covered her face as she mouthed, no, I don't want to. Dylan's hands became gentle on her even as he tugged her tighter. It'll be okay, he whispered close against Sky's ear. You need to get back to Wade and the boy to tell them about these sick. They're closer to the cabin than we'd like. We gotta keep them safe. Dylan drew back just enough he could scan her face. Sky searched Dylan's face from his hairline to his hard jaw, then settled on his dark blue eyes. His gaze didn't leave her, and she returned it. Tears welled up and spilled when she looked down. Sky wiped them away and pulled in a deep breath, giving him a determined nod. Relief showed in Dylan's gaze. We will go on together until we can't anymore. Get ready to run. Pain had long since settled in from the awkward slow crouch Sky had been forced into, but she was quick to forget about it every time there was a noise from their pursuers. For every step that Dylan and Sky took, it seemed those chasing them took too, continuing to get closer with each passing moment. Sky shuddered when their whispering and muttering grew louder. Whether they whispered to one another, or each was lost in themselves, Sky didn't know. She didn't want to be close enough to find out.